And with me is the ever smarter, better looking, totally captivating, very talented Mr. Stuart Butler.
Hello. We're live. Not a single word is true.
I know for most people that you're not used to, seeing anybody but my smiley, cheery, happy face at the bottom. Of the hour when we first start, but Stuart has graced me with his presence early on, and it has been a joy ever since.
I wanted to see your big doe eyes and your voluptuous lips early this week.
Sweet talker.
Yeah.
Oh, look, Mr. Robert Cole, the brains behind the operation. Stop popping in.
Oh, hi. How are you?
If that's the brains behind the operation, we are.
We're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goofy's joined us. Although, for a brief moment, I thought Valen was going to join us, and then she bowed out at the last minute, and she threw some caltrips at us, some sharp pointed stuff where she wanted to make her points. Because, if anybody could talk on our hot topic today, which we're going to tell you about in just a minute, it would have been her, because, Nor 1 is kind of like in the middle of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they have a lot of experience.
So you think that she would be, decide to forego any of this client garbage stuff that pulls us out of these conversations. And
if Valen is on the show, we may all love Valen, but if she's not on the show, we can trash her just as badly as anyone else, just as badly as Tim or Ed.
Oh, good.
There's,
Point.
yeah.
Point. Yeah. Well, let's
Yeah.
have at it.
That's
And
funny.
for people to understand, why we were so and Mr. Robert Cole is generous with his time, overly generous, a man of many talents, of great insight, wisdom, resources. What other words did you give me?
Sleep is so overrated.
But he curates a wonderful list for us. But in the midst of this, Mr. Tim Peter, who is yet to show up, so we get to bang on him a little bit, threw out an article that Focusrite had generously posted about with his name on it.
Well, Focus Wire.
Oh, Focus Wire. Excuse me, Focus Wire. Yes, this is correct. You're right. Yeah,
A wholly owned subsidiary of Focusrite,
Yeah.
but quite different in.
yes.
They let anyone on
Article.
Focus Wire.
Yeah, had an article that Tim had wrote.
Right. Yeah. Kevin May has very low standards.
Yeah.
They'll
I mean,
print anything.
They let Tim Peter on there. They've let me on there before. Yeah, there's just.
What was-
As far as
very low
nothing
bar.
more
I don't
than a
know
penis
Does Rolling Stone still have their old slogan that used to be always the New York Times was all the news that's fit to print? I believe Rolling Stone used to be all the news that fits. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So they're taking a very rock and roll attitude.
and he quoted some, I don't know, somebody I never heard of, Robert Cole in the middle of that too. He quoted somebody like that in there in the middle of the article.
What? Oh,
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean, talking about grabbing at straws and unsubstantiated claims.
I would certainly discount any sort of
Yeah.
somebody citing that guy as a
It's
source.
solid
Good
the
Lord.
argument. I was with him until that point, but as soon as he
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, well, now we got to pick on Ed because Tim's here. We can't pick on Tim as much as we were just doing. Mr. Tim Peter.
Oh wow.
You
There's
can
a
pick.
picture.
You can pick on me anytime you like. I can both
Thank
take it. I can take it and dish it out, fellas.
Yes, you can.
He welcomes it.
Yeah.
Yes, he can.
Well, I was raised by Catholic nuns, so I take that as a
There's
if
ruler
there
scars on
aren't-
the back of them knuckles.
If there aren't beatings going on, I just take it for
Wait.
granted. Something's not right in the universe.
I somewhat fortunately, and I can thank my sister, was not raised by Catholic nuns. She went to Catholic school for, I believe, 6 years, and I know certainly in her sixth grade class, the first year teacher or the first year nun who was teaching did not come back to teaching and may have left the
order?
may have left the faith completely.
sure.
Due to the rather rambunctious and devious behavior of my sister and her friend. And I wound up, because she was a few 5 years older than me, I wound up not going to Catholic school. I'm not sure if I wasn't invited or what the
I think
dynamic
they probably
was.
should have said any of the Cole family is not allowed to come. But
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
right.
So
Second,
thank
second
you,
grade through
thank you,
12,
Tina.
by the way.
I think
second
yeah.
grade through 12. And to be fair, my high school was run by Catholic monks, Benedictine monks, and they were actually profiled on 60 Minutes. I'm very proud of my alma mater. I'm very proud of St. Benedict's Prep in Newark, New Jersey. Phenomenal school. They were profiled on 60 Minutes. It is in inner city Newark. The class makeup is about 75% African American. It's about 20% Hispanic, and then the rest made up of Asian, white kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They have almost a 100% graduation rate, and almost 100% of the guys who go there graduate from a 4-year college, and they are frequently profiled because people are trying to figure out, how do you guys manage to pull this off?
Wow.
It's a really, really, really cool place.
So how do they put that in context? Tim, are you the
they
one that
started
pulled the
keeping
bell
those-
curve down?
I am the one who
No,
kept the bell
they
curve down.
started
That's
keeping
exactly
the-
right.
They started keeping those stats right after Tim graduated.
That's
Right. After I,
When it was
after
a
I been out of high
lawless-
school for
It was
5
a
years.
lawless school.
There's a 100% graduation since Tim left.
Right, exactly. That is precisely correct. They started keeping those records 5 years after I left the school, so that they could say it's clean. 4 years after.
Okay, all right. Hey, so I put up our this article from some Yahoo. I don't know, unsubstantiated claims of some context. Tim somebody. But since we have the source of all this, and kudos, because it really solicited some great conversation that we had earlier. I was trying to say that Robert curates a list for us, and then we talk about this, but Tim was gracious enough to go over and point this article out that he just had published. And it really brought up some great conversations between us. Fallon, who unfortunately is not going to be able to join us, but she made some great points that I definitely want to throw in our conversation when we start.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, by the way, people should address Fallon's last email, because I think she is spot on. It's a nice summary of my point.
Yes. And I was just being contrarian. I actually believe very close to what everybody was talking about. I just wanted to throw in the fact I wanted to play Ed for a while and disagree with anybody just because it didn't come from me. So, but I definitely agree from the perspective. But for those, Mr. Tim, since it is your article and it is in the context that you inspired this conversation, or we'll have, please bring us into the conversation. So I wrote this. It's funny. It just got published this month. It actually was in response to an article that Simone Puerto wrote in June about attribute-based selling, and he made a lot of good points about the benefits of attribute-based selling. And I want to be very clear. I think the article, I'm going to come off as the guy who thinks attribute-based selling is a waste of time or terrible or things along those lines. I do not think that. What I do think is that people are pinning a lot of hopes to attribute-based selling that are, unlikely to come to pass. So, attribute-based selling is basically the idea of you can unbundle the room type, you can unbundle the various amenities from the room, etc., and then price each attribute individually and sell that to customers, guests who are looking for that specific set of attributes, and thus make more money. That's a nice theory. The other thing that it is often touted as is that it's a great way to regain some control from the OTAs, because of course the OTAs won't have this content and won't be able to unbundle and rebundle the inventory, as nimbly as hotels will. And again, that's an interesting theory. So my issue with all of that was, A, I don't think attribute-based selling is a bad idea. B, I think it is getting way too much hype for the likely benefits that it's going to provide.
Wait, you're saying our industry overhypes things?
Yeah, I know. This is crazy, Stuart. I don't know if you've ever run into this. But apparently some people think this is going to be the holy grail that is going to finally put the OTAs in their place and make everybody want to book direct always and forever. And I got to tell you, I find that argument unpersuasive because, well, I was born maybe not yesterday. So, I do think attribute-based selling has its place. I think when it's used correctly, it could be really impactful for those customers who want it, for those guests who want it. But that we may be pinning too many hopes on something that is likely only going to appeal to a segment of the traveler market that has some limitations, and that if done badly could actually hurt hotels far more than it helps them. And if it's okay, I realize I've been talking for a minute here, but if I can just finish one point here, that's actually my biggest concern, even though I get to it, I think, third or fourth in the article. My single biggest concern is I think once we start unbundling inventory, people are going to start to shop for price on the pieces that they want. And if it's done badly, you could actually hurt your revenue because you are likely to, people are going to go, wait a second, I don't care about the view. I care about this thing over here. So I'm going to pay a lot less for the view and I'm going to pay more for the thing that I want. And I'm going to find the places that have the things I want more because they have more of that or a better price or the like. And we're just going to create a whole new, conflict there. So I'm in favor of it if it's done very, very, very well, but we have to recognize it needs to be done because it's for the benefit of the guest first, not because, hey, this is some way where we're going to seize control of our inventory. I just don't think that's a realistic
May
view.
I throw in my view here?
Please. Anybody who wants my view can read the article.
I would like to go on record as being opposed to anything that is not done well. So, I know that's kind of
all right.
fair. I know
Fine.
it's our 4th anniversary show. I wanted to throw in some controversy, but so
Fine.
here's the problem. Simone's article came out was based basically on an April 29th, April 30th press release, I believe by Shiji, or by some, not really a press release, but an article wound up being published on Hospitality Net. And with all due respect to Shiji and Derby Soft and Amadeus and all the large groups who are pushing behind this, that article was published with a very, very distressing graphic, which completely underlined my point that the hotel industry will fuck this up if they don't have a good strategy, right?
Wow.
Hear what I told you about the word stuff, and you said it was okay.
They will. They will. They have done it in the past. The strategy here was the classic hotel industry strategy, similar to the one for revenue management, where they took the page from the airline book, got a photocopier, and ran with it, sort of thing, right? Completely ignoring all the differences in the industry. Airlines have been very, very successful at unbundling their product. Right. And basically consumers hate most of it, right? They have a loathing for it.
Yep.
It has undermined their ability to comparison shop. It has convoluted a whole bunch of processes. It's not consistently merchandised. It's a mess, right? Now, the airlines are doing this very purposefully.
Hi.
Hello, Ed. The airlines are doing this purposely because they're leveraging their market position to basically expand their margins through this unbundling. The problem is, at least in North America, the major origin and destination city pairs are basically divvied up amongst major carriers, right? And that's how they can do it. Right? They have that market control. Hotels do not have that market control. And if you look at even airfares on their revenue management, and again, with all due respect to American Airlines, they just follow around Southwest pricing most of the time, and sometimes Spirit's. If it happens to be Spirit's nonstop Dallas-Chicago price, American follows that a lot, especially with basic economy. For most everything else, they follow Southwest, right? So this is not how the hotel industry, should be working.
Well, not just that. I mean, we have to remember when you think of Hilton or you think of Marriott, who actually makes up, like what kind of property actually makes up the volume of their business? Oh, yeah. It's not the type of property that this type of selling is going to have the most impact for. Like this isn't going to have a huge amount of impact for Hampton Inns and Homewood Suites and Courtyards and Spring Hills, which is the volume leader of these franchises.
And if I can jump on that for a second, I mean, that was the second point I made in the article. And I would say the same is true, frankly, for Marriott or Hilton or, Wyndham Grand or any of those other kinds of things.
Not a mega resort.
Because the room type differentiation we tend to see at any individual property tends not to be that distinct. It doesn't mean that this isn't appropriate for some hotels where they have very distinct room type inventory. But I mean, we can't differentiate the inventory we have many days.
Listen, can't even successfully fulfill booking lockout rooms.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
right.
why don't we systematically solve that
Right.
before we go to selling whether or not you can see an angle of sunshine between the skyrise building surrounding the hotel.
Oh, the partial ocean view suite, perhaps?
Well, notice I did not say ocean view. I said sunlight.
Right.
Like, let's at least think in a city where the view can differ greatly.
Well, and I'm going to come at this from a slightly different perspective, and I agree with that. I think many hotels could have a lot of success actually selling, upselling, can sell, these additional features and the like, but close the sale first for the room that the people want and the like, and then say, hey, would you like this view? Would you like a junior suite? Would you like?
Well, and even
would you like?
Find out if someone even cares ultimately.
Correct. Exactly.
Or like the IDGAF room type should exist.
Yeah,
because there are times based on why and who you're traveling with that literally the hotel is a box to put your stuff in and a pillow to rest your head on.
Right.
Nothing else about the attributes of the hotel matter to you. And there are trips where that is true. And then there are trips where, I'm going to spend a lot of time at the hotel.
For sure.
So I care about certain things. So how about we start by trying to identify what's at play here and close what's at play and then try and upsell.
Well, and for a lot of properties, they need to get their house in order first. They need to normalize the naming conventions of their room types as a start, right? And figure out how they're segmenting them, because people do a terrible job of that. And they certainly don't want to add clunky stuff in the funnel to force people to make more decisions. And one of those decisions is, I'm confused, let me go somewhere where it's simple. So
and by the way, travelers don't know what rate plans are. Why are they even in the dynamic of the sales process?
Yeah, it's ludicrous. We've done, the industry's doing what it does with everything, right? It takes sort of a good concept of people have preferences and maybe you can monetize that to the nth degree and says, let's overcomplicate this and make it unworkable for anyone and something that people aren't even asking for. But I think Balin said it really well, because they're doing, one's doing a lot of add-ons and upgrades
and they do a great job of this, by the way.
After the sale, and they do a great job, right? Fuel's doing some of that with room upgrades at check-in and stuff like that. Revenate's doing that, and that all works well if it's executed well. But
and that's the big thing. The big risk of upsell is making sure that if you're putting it in front of someone that it could be of interest to, more often than not, you're able to fulfill their desire. This is one of my problems with some of how room upgrades have been done. Is my own personal experience as a traveler. I've actually been, every time it's put in front of me as, hey, upgrades may be available, for this much money after the sale, I've never gotten it. So you've unnecessarily opened my mind to there was something available, and I was willing to pay the price that they presented, but when I got there, it wasn't there. And it's happened to me every single time, which leads me to believe it happens a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's just floor planning in that case. They should be checking the inventory availability before they make the offer. I think that's how we execute it. If it's not available, you don't get presented with it.
Well, and the first draft of this piece, and I ended up chopping it out because it was too hard to make the point cleanly, in an article that had some length restrictions on it. But, I think everybody on this show knows, obviously I worked for what was Cendant Hotels for a lot of years, which, we sold Travelodges and Super 8s and Howard Johnson's and things like that. And then I went to work for the leading hotels in the world for a bunch of years. And over the course of the 10, 11 years, a bit of bookends, right. I have a pretty good feel for the various types of products and how people book online and the like. And my client portfolio today runs the gamut from at least mid-scale up. And I can tell you, having sold a couple $1 billion worth of rooms online over the last 15, 18 years, every time we give people more choice, conversion rates go down. right?
Yes.
I actually started with a reference to the book, The Paradox of Choice, and that I just couldn't make it work in the context of the article and make the other points.
Right.
But the reality is, we always think people want choice, and they do want a degree of choice. But what they also want is a very clear, here's the thing you want. Here's the thing you might want. And here's the thing maybe sort of you could want if you wanted it. And then get the hell out of their way and let them do that. Because one of those three, one of those four is likely the right option for 95% of the people. 95%
Good, better,
of the people.
best is the level of choice that people want.
Yeah, that's a great way to sum it up, Ed.
And then
That's
have
a
an
great way.
off ramp, right, to a different experience.
sure,
some
for
people,
sure.
that small percentage of people that
For
want to
sure.
be a pain in the ass, right? So
For
you
sure.
give them that option, but
For the
don't
Lauren Grays of the world.
don't penalize the majority of normal people because you've got some weirdos out there that
And
want
that's my
unbundle.
point about attribute-based selling, right?
Yeah.
For that segment of people, there's a story I use all the time when we talk about this of any kind. When you look at faceted search or things like that, you've all seen, everybody's familiar. When you go to Google, you do a search and it says all, and it says images, and it says videos, and it says whatever and whatever and whatever. What's interesting is that Google now knows enough about your intent based upon the search word that if they think a video is the right answer, they put the video right in the search result. If they think an image is the right answer, they put the image right in the search result. The reason that they've done that is because on a percentage basis, nobody clicks the little tabs at the top. Nobody.
No,
I mean, Google gets 3 million searches a minute. So, I mean, if a tiny percentage clicks on it, they get a lot of clicks.
A lot of people,
Right,
yeah.
but if
a
you
lot of
build
people. But in
solutions
percentage terms,
for the
it's a
spam
very-
level percentages,
Right,
you're
exactly.
you're going after the wrong
Exactly.
opportunity.
And
you're-
that's fundamentally my issue with attribute-based selling.
Yeah,
Make
I
it-
agree.
Make it available to those who want it, which is going to be a small percentage. Let's not hang our hopes on the fact that, somehow OTAs who've done a better job of, e-commerce in the travel industry than anybody else, somehow they're not going to be able to duplicate this functionality.
This is new data.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm sorry. And that is
yeah.
something that we should be clear with the hotels on.
Right. Exactly.
Technical path to conversion is not a battle you're going to win.
Correct.
Right.
That's right.
Well, the article with the interview of the CEO of Expedia, I think he referenced they have 7,000 engineers and AI folks and data analysts and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a
Well, and
no
it's
one
not
else
just
can compete with
quantity.
that.
They're also capable of attracting the better skill, the better
Yeah.
talent.
They do. They have quality,
Because
and they've got leverage
it's
as well.
what
because
they
have the money.
actually are. They're a
Right.
technology company.
That's exactly right.
Where hotel companies that have technology departments, inevitably an engineer knows they're going to spend most of their time doing the things that the non-technical person desired.
Right.
Where
Yeah.
with Expedia, the engineers are primarily working for product people who are developing product for technology purposes.
Well,
Yep.
and I'm gonna come at that from a slightly different perspective, Ed, because I understand the point you're making, and I agree mostly, but I look at it a little bit, 30 degrees off center from where you are, right? I think the hospitality industry is capable of attracting, and has in many cases attracted, some really competent, really skilled technology folks, and some really capable, really skilled product folks. However,
Exceptions to the rule do exist.
and where I
But
would
the
agree with
rule
you.
is
Well,
the gravity of a hotel
correct,
group
correct. By the way, I
is
agree.
not the
I agree.
same as the gravity of an Expedia.
By the way, I completely agree with that. I actually refer to them all the time as gravity wells, right? Because they suck in everybody who wants to do that thing. What the hotel industry does, what the travel industry does, what the travel technology industry does in terms of attracting technologists, is they attract technologists who seem to be interested in solving those problems specifically for travel. So you're getting a narrower set of folks from the outset. What an Expedia can do, what a Booking.com can do, what a what a Google can do in some of their travel ambitions and the like, is attract engineers who are interested in engineering for its own sake. And so they just get to draw from a larger pool, right? So it's not even necessarily that the very best person in one place couldn't be as good as some of the best people at the other places. It's just that the universe of people who are going to be attracted to those two different types of places are going to be very differently sized universes. Very, very differently sized universes.
Well, let's not call them both universes. One would be a solar system, while the other would be a galaxy.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable.
Would be a correct depiction of scale?
Yeah, I think that's very accurate for sure. Yeah, for sure. So, but that's fundamentally what drove the article.
But let's also not forget that I really feel like attribution-based selling is a stock market thing. I think this is a project that was created to have talking points to shareholders that was going to take a nice long time to get to a point where, oops, like we actually are doing it now and it's not actually doing all that much. It's a great never-ending project that you can point to as creating mystery on future growth. Let's face it, that's what public companies have to do, is they have to make it hard to find the endpoint of growth.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the way they're going to solve the problem and really make this successful is if they use blockchain to accomplish it, because then
only
Airbnb,
completely immersive virtual reality.
Everyone will
blockchain and VR is how they will solve this.
Blockchain, VR, 5G. Yeah, I mean for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Airbnb thrown in.
For sure.
So I'll just throw in one thing. This is not new stuff, okay? Let's go back to the 1980s. Just picking up on what you guys were saying. The good, better, best. 1985. Oh, sorry, bingo card. It's the 4th anniversary. Got to fill it up, right?
Right.
Four Seasons.
5th anniversary.
What did we do corporately at Four Seasons? We decided to go with moderate, superior, deluxe as 3 fundamental standard room type categories because it was good, better, best. Right. And then you could have very different hotels and very different things, but the customer could kind of understand, okay, and I want a suite. Oh, then there's some other stuff that's great.
By the way,
simple.
I also want to point out another reason why the architectural investment in attribution-based selling is insane, because the people who actually care about it enough know how to get that, which is you just call.
Actually, exactly. Ed, you want to do a funny thing? Since Robert's doing his history, I'll do mine real quick because this is a very, very fast thing. So I used to run an online travel agency during my time at Leading called luxres.com, right?
I remember
Yeah, which we ultimately shut down because we didn't want to invest in it. I mean, fundamentally, we knew
it was embarrassing to be that successful, really.
No.
Like most online travel companies that were developed and invested in by a hotel group, inevitably the hotel group realizes that they don't want to continue investing in it at the level it should be invested in to correctly acquire consumers.
Correct. That is absolutely correct. Yeah. It was actually profitable. It made good money, but to get the growth that people, originally thought it was going to get, it was going to take a lot more investment than anybody had the appetite for, which is fine, which is totally fine. But our best-selling product, our most profitable product, was packages. We sold some tremendous packages because we were able to put together, as you might imagine, as a luxury company, some really spectacular packages. The way that we sold the most of them, by far, we did all kinds of testing around this, was we would have a promotion page, a package page. We would develop a page to merchandise a package, and we would offer the good, better, best version of it. And, the good version was, I'm making these numbers up because I don't remember now, the good version was $8,000, the better version was $10,000 and the best version was $15,000. And we played with things like price anchoring to figure out what was the right thing to do there, etc. Doesn't matter. The point is, every time we tried versions where people could do their own and the like, conversion rate was crap. Every time we gave them lots of different options, conversion rates were crap. Every time we gave them good, better, best, every time we gave them good, better, best, the call rates on those were enormous. Enormous. And the funny part was almost nobody booked the good, the better, or the best, because people would call and they'd go, man, I love this package you got here, but, you know, the good is good, but what I'd really like to do is instead of going here, can I go here? And instead of doing this, can I do this? And instead of doing this, can I do this? And we'd put together a package that went from $8,000 to $15,000, and people were thrilled, and the conversion rate, the profitability was spectacular. But what drove the interest in the first place was good, better, best.
Right. Yep.
I think
And
you
that's
can this up to one of your other articles you put in here, Robert. We might get to about America.
hang on. I'm still back in the 1980s. I was.
Yeah, that's right. We're still back in the 80s.
Okay.
I'm not leaving the topic. I was just referring to the fact that something else about this. But go ahead.
Okay, just very quickly. Number 2, and like Tim, worked at the top of the market and the bottom with Journey's End. At Journey's End, we were building
By the way, is a bad name for a company that handles the bottom end of the market.
I did not
check in.
The company.
Go to endoftheline.com. Go to endoftheroad.com.
I joined after that had already happened, but we still made it the damn second fastest growing company in the country across all industry sectors. But what did we do? We had a standard model where we said, let's keep this simple. We have rooms with 2 double beds and we have rooms with queen-sized beds. We have upstairs units and we have downstairs units. And we had a lead price that was on the sign. And if there was an additional person, it was $7 more. So we had a very nice structure. So, if you want an additional person, it's this. If you want a king or a queen bed instead of 2 doubles, it was a slight surcharge. And if you wanted, I think it was a downstairs versus an upstairs, that was a little bit more. So basically, you could figure out at any property, you saw that lead price, and if you were an insider, you kind of figured out, nothing's going to be more than whatever, $15 more than that, right, for what I need, right? A very, very simple calculation.
Right.
And it worked miraculously, and not because it was, just all structured like it made sense, and it produced value for the things that customers were looking for. The downstairs room had like a sliding door to the parking lot, right? That's better than having to go upstairs because a lot of these didn't have elevators, right? So, yeah, you had things like that, and you just kind of it was completely customer focused, and the pricing reflected the value that the customer
like perceived. A Ryanair style.
Well, even more simple. I worked for Wyndham. We owned Super 8. Super 8 when it started in 1974. You know why it was called Super 8?
$8 a night.
$8.88 a night.
Which was a third higher than Motel 6.
Yes,
so
it was.
Talk about expanding margins. Yeah,
and it was incredibly successful because they simplified it. Right? They simplified it. Now, is that appropriate in 2019? No, of course not. But somebody might be able to get away with doing.
The thing you have to always remember as a marketer is you care a lot more about what you're doing than your customers care about what you're doing.
Wait, no, stop, Ed. That's not.
And sometimes you do have to take a step back and ask yourself, are you doing this for you?
Right.
Or are you doing this for your customer?
Right.
And attribution-based selling
is not for the customer.
Not for the customer.
No, and I'd like to add to that statement 2 things. One is that women were charging resort fees and saying, these are all things we're offering to you, and we're charging you the opportunity to be able to to have this access and so forth. And now we're going to unbundle that concept and say, no, you're right. We shouldn't charge you just to have generalized access. We're going to charge you for aspects of this now, and based upon what you want to have for it. So we're changing it, and the consumer has gotten dulled to overstuffed pillows and oversized rooms and opulent and any other adjective we can throw at them to somehow change our description of our product in a way that sounds bigger and better than what it actually is. They're through the bullshit, so to speak, of the white noise of the words we use. And now they know that if we're doing it this way, it's because it's a better way for us to exploit more monies from them, not because, to Ed's point, it's to the guest improvement that we're doing this for. And, but I will also say, and this is in contra to everything I just said, that I thought that when I first got into hotels, that all of the ancillary services were fat, bloated leeches. that didn't know how to run a business, because restaurants relied upon the hotel, didn't care about whether they made payroll because they didn't have to worry about it. Their expenses were covered. The repairs were somebody else paying for it. The hotel paid for the restaurant whether it was profitable or not. So the restaurant didn't run as a business; it ran as an accessory. And I thought that if you could put some entrepreneurship into the ancillary services in a way that said, if I didn't have this big building over me with all these people sleeping, can I still do business? I thought would have been a good kick in the butt for most of them. And it was, and it helped them in those things, spas and everything else included. So I would say there is a value proposition to making them sink or swim on their own, that they have the value proposition that they have to run as a business, but not to the point at the detriment of the guest experience that now the guest has to decide whether they want it or don't want it by paying for it or not paying for it, or having it included or not.
Well, you need a budget and a strategy for each of your operating departments. So you say, here's food and beverage. And if your strategy is to break even or even lose money running this fine dining restaurant in the basement because you think that you're doing something where, hey, we reserve tables for hotel guests and that's the only way you can get to it, and that way we can get a higher room rate or something like. Okay,
yeah, but then that's
maybe
just
that maybe
correctly
that
attributing. Like if that
Exactly.
raises your rate on the
Right.
hotel side, you need to attribute some of that raised rate
Absolutely.
correctly
Yes.
to the
To the-
loss leader.
Right.
Right.
I mean, so it's correct and incorrect. Like it's not one size fits all. Because I would make an argument that a restaurant that draws people into a hotel that otherwise wouldn't be at that hotel
Mhm.
actually creates a opportunity of awareness.
Oh,
That hotel's
absolutely.
a great place to stay,
Right.
because if a hotel's got a great restaurant
Yeah.
that locals want to go to, when their friends
Absolutely.
ask them, where should I stay when I'm coming to town, they're going to recommend the hotel with the great restaurant.
Wait, Ed, I'm very confused. It sounds to me like you're talking about an integrated marketing and sales strategy for all of the services.
No. We've all learned.
Without breaking it out by separate.
We've all
without
been in this
breaking it out by
industry long
separate
enough to
channels,
know
all siloed.
Witchcraft.
that the
It is
healthiest
witchcraft.
organizations in this industry have incredibly strong silos with very thick walls, and each silo is incredibly protective of its own interest
Yeah.
despite the overall health of the organization. We know that is proven successful in this industry. Let's not go talking about this hippy dippy, everyone should be aligned to the same, business focus and ultimately be going towards the same overarching goals. That doesn't work.
It doesn't. And it does work, especially when those thick walls and these silos try to outcompete against each other.
Oh,
And
they
these-
have to,
At
in
the-
order for
at the
silos to
detriment
be
of each other.
successful,
at the detriment
they
of
need
each
to,
other.
they need to actually be actively trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
Those are the most successful businesses.
Yeah,
That's right. Exactly.
Yes, not to mention individual agendas, politics, and sandboxes. All things must be
Well, that's a
maintained.
given.
Saying
The
goes
most
elsewhere.
interesting silos are nasty.
Meetings are nothing more than Shark Tanks with blood in the water.
Oh man.
With that in mind, I was thinking about the Marriott Bonvoy. They're yet no extending the carrot on the pole just a tad farther,
Mhm.
where now it's not just standard rates for points redemptions. It's highs and lows and mediums and in betweens, and
Yeah.
gosh knows who goes when and where. So I'll put the link up on Mr. Roberts, since it's your article. I'll let you.
There's no better way to cover up that you're struggling than to create so much complexity that no one can get to the bottom of what's going on.
Right.
Wait,
and,
wait.
and
I didn't think we were talking about the WeWork IPO.
yeah, I almost put in the WeWork IPO. I almost put in an article for it, but there was other stuff to include. But the Bonvoy thing, I actually think it's kind of a smart. This may be a little contrarian. I think it's kind of a smart move by Marriott on this, because that way they can start yield managing a lot of these, because a lot of these hotels have real problems dealing with we're getting 12,000 points or whatever, or the value associated with that, and we are sold out because of these massive events. Or here's a period of time where people aren't going to stay because 12,000 points is ridiculous for that amount, or whatever the case may be, right? So it kind of gets that aligned with it. Some airlines have done it.
They're introducing a new lever at the property level to allow them to merchandise a little bit and times
Yeah.
when it's peak and times when it's quiet. I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. I don't think it's got the consumer's interest at heart. I think it's designed to make more money for Marriott. And
Right. Yeah. And I think in terms of the consumers, yes, there will be, certainly folks who are quite upset about it and go, oh, they devalued the value. Well, yeah, exactly. They devalued it. These programs are not, when you put Starwood and Marriott together,
it's
we
not
said on the
a
show,
loyalty program.
it's a rewards program, and they're trying to slim down those rewards because they are too rich and they've got to generate more
loyalty programs.
Yeah, I know,
that's
but
part of the problem. Is they try to convince the consumer that they're loyal to them in exchange for them being loyal.
Right.
That's not at all. It's hey, you got all this stuff that kind of forces you to stay with us. Now we're just putting some exceptions in on, if you want to come here when we don't want you, like, okay, we'll let you do it, but you're going to pay for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the guys who stay at Fairfields a whole bunch of times to be able to stay at a Ritz-Carlton once, that's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah.
I felt like that's much harder.
The one thing for me that was a slap in the face, I think, to the members was where it says there was a question like, what happens if the point value changes for a stay that I already have? And it was basically, if it's now going to cost more points and you've already got a stay, you're good. We're not going to charge you extra. But if for some reason the number of points to get that stay decreases, we're not going to magically make that right with you and recredit the things. You've got to go and go cancel the room and hope that another room is available and go rebook it yourself. So that, assuming you're not within that cancellation window where then you're just screwed. So
because loyalty, you really want to make sure that it's heads I win, tails you lose.
Yeah,
from the company's perspective.
We don't have your best interest in heart. Let me show you how.
Well, I also say that I think this is to the benefit of Marriott as a brand because, and I'm not saying that hotels do this, but there's a way of gaming the reward system for occupancy percentages that will allow you for redemption rate values based upon your current ADRs. And if you have the ability to put yourself over certain peak levels of occupancy percentages, then Marriott as a brand has to redeem you at different ADR levels. And I'm sure by increasing the point spread, that will reduce the ability for redemptions, which, yes, to your point, Robert, helps the hotel mitigate its redemption percentages, but they're still under obligation. The second is it also means that the brand has less obligation to pay at ADR levels if certain occupancies aren't hit, because less people are doing the redemption values to draw them in. So, again, it is to no guest benefit that this exists.
Right. And that point I made is an illustration of that. Because if you remember to last week's episode where we were talking about how Disney really cares about the guest experience and wants to reduce friction, and they did the whole Magic Band thing, and then they realized, oh, no, guests are going to have to put in 16 numbers to identify themselves and connect them to the band, and that's too much hassle for a guest.
So let's spend $1 million.
Spend $1 million to fix that little problem. We all understand engineering on this panel, right? We know that they could fix that problem where people wouldn't have to cancel and they would automatically get credited. That wouldn't be a massive problem to solve, and yet they don't.
But what's the ROI?
Yes, to do it, right?
What's the ROI?
From a business perspective, from their own interest level, not from what is right by the guest.
And that's the challenge, as Ed said, the dictation by Wall Street. It is incredibly difficult for these major hotel brands to do something that is, best for the guest. And hey, we're going to take a hit this quarter, but we're retooling the loyalty program, and we're going to take a hit in the third quarter. But hey, next year it's going to work out great because we're structured for the future. That doesn't work in that environment. It's like nope. Just make sure it works this quarter. And by the way, we want that in the future too. So we'll take both. They like to check that box of both.
Hey, do we have someone else joining?
I was going to talk. Yeah, I can't. There's a little black box that popped up here, and I don't know.
Someone had their
joined
hand raised,
Scott,
so I just clicked the green check.
Hey! Oh, and he's sideways.
Hey, Scott, you got to unmute your microphone.
Here, let's not make Scott feel bad. Okay, now we're doing.
Don't press the big red button.
So
don't push the big red button.
Do not push the red button. Yeah, which.
Just the microphone button.
So Scott, there's a microphone button that you got to hit to turn on your microphone.
Up at the top.
Right next to the video button.
Got it.
You already clicked. There you go.
There we are.
There we go. Are we good?
Yeah.
Are you still
This
sideways?
is so,
That's
it's
all
so
right.
complex. I don't know why. I mean, gosh, how do people figure that out? We'll click the microphone.
Wait, because it is our fourth. This is our fourth anniversary show.
Fifth anniversary.
We are on the webinar. We are
Robert.
on the Webinar Jam platform that Lauren discovered, but this is only after we were on the Huzzah platform, the short-lived
Right.
Huzzah platform, and before that the blab.im platform, which
Yeah,
also deceased. So yeah.
Oh, that one didn't stick around? Are you serious? Blab.io?
No, and we're
yeah,
still
taking
quite
those out,
amazed
yeah.
Webinar Jam is here. So we normally kill
We're
the
on Webinar
platform,
Jam
so
for it.
we're on it. So yeah.
Awesome.
Anyway,
Well, thanks for
so-
letting me join. I couldn't miss the 5th anniversary celebration.
right.
It's the fourth. It's the fourth. Lauren doesn't know how to count birthdays, but it's okay.
It's fifth.
Your fourth birthday is after
I feel like
the
I'm
first
with
year.
Robert on this one. How many shows have there been? 210?
Yeah, we lived around for a year beforehand for it. But anyways, well, with that in mind, Mr. Robert, pick the next happy topic for us.
Oh, I don't pick the. I
Am I
throw
the
up
only
the
one who's still
topics and
seeing
you guys.
Scott sideways? Because I'm going to fall out of my chair in a second.
Yeah, let's all just do this.
Yeah. No, you're. That's upside down, Stuart. You got to go the other way. So.
Well, he is from Australia, so.
Oh, that's true. That's a very, very good point. So,
Hey, okay. All right. I'll throw one out there about
Pick
Skyscanner closing its local traffic, because we've had this discussion about Google and its travel application coming into play.
oh, poor GoGoBot. Poor little GoGoBot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Where Skyscanner,
Travis-
since they've acquired it and so forth, have decided that they're going to shut down the localization. Is Google the only one that can do this? Or, I mean, even TripAdvisor does it poorly.
let me tell you, GoGoBot was a great little company. We took a trip to California. I took the family. This was several years ago, and it was basically kind of community curated, really cool, great things to do, and a high degree of engagement. Really simple to use. I mean, they Travis Katz, who really did a tremendous job on crafting. Now the problem is, how do you scale that, right? That's always the killer. So of course they couldn't get the funding to go do it, but they had two things that came up. Tim had mentioned Sendent, and the Sendent Travel Distribution Services Group actually used to own the URL trip.com.
I was at the
And what did they
I was at the
do?
kickoff meeting for Trip.com. I was on the
Which was
on the Trip.com team.
Yeah, which was a great URL for travel. And what did they do? They let it lapse.
Yep.
And Travis picked it up for.
Yep.
They let
After
it
I left
lapse.
the company, let's be very clear, long after.
We are talking, just completely ridiculous. He didn't have to go pay $10 million. Famously, Hotels.com was acquired for $11 million, right? It was Hotel Reservations Network, or 1-800-96hotels.com, which was not quite as good as Hotels.com, and probably worth the $11 million spent. But anyway, so Travis did that. That was great. Trip.com, and then was acquired by Skyscanner, and Skyscanner was acquired by Ctrip. They use some of the stuff, but basically, Ctrip now for their English language product is Trip.com, which is brilliant for Ctrip, because you kind of have, it's Chinese Trip.com, and then you have Trip.com. Yeah, it works brilliantly. So Travis made a bunch of money out of the exit and things like that, and they did some good things, but RIP GoGoBot, which was a cool little platform. And boy, if TripAdvisor or any of these other groups, Google could do what they were doing, it was fantastic. But I don't think they can.
As ever, I have a slightly different take on this. And I first of all, I agree with what you just said, Robert. I also think that, you asked an interesting question, Lauren, a moment ago about, is Google the only one who can do this? And the answer is yes, but not for the reason not for a different reason than the reason behind the question, I think.
Okay.
Which is, all of these things are features. Like, this is just part of search, right? Google's the only one who can do it, because this is just the information people expect to find when they search for and have specific intents. Why did Google get rid of their app? Because they're just going to bundle all that into the search experience or into maps, or where it's most appropriate for guest intent,
absolutely.
customer intent. So if you can't get people to use you because their intent is to do that, then none of those apps are going to work. It just is a feature that needs to exist within the search experience or the social experience or wherever they happen to be when their intent is, oh, by the way, I'm curious about where good places to go, good places to stay. And right now, Google owns the intent part of the funnel.
Right.
And Google and Gogobot. Oh, go ahead.
To prove that point, Google just announced all of the features that were in their Trips app are now getting rolled into the Maps.
Wait, I'm shocked. I'm completely and utterly shocked. I'm gobsmacked.
Nostradamus over there.
It does lead to the fact that one of the other articles you pointed out about that for the first time there's zero clicks in Google compared to click-through actions, and I thought I read that article into being a little bit more about the fact that you're just inquiring and you're not acting. You're the assistant engagements and so forth, the questions and so forth, but you're not acting on what you're only getting a query back or something like this, and you're shaking your head, Tim.
No, because you're getting the answer to your question. You're done.
Right.
The answer boxes are appearing more and more, and more and more queries.
And we should talk about the Rand Fishkin. Who spoke at the Milestone conference a couple of weeks ago, who was great. Founder of Moz, the Wizard of Moz, right? Had founded Moz way back.
No longer at Moz, by the way.
No. He's got SparkToro. Yeah, SparkToro is his new venture. But with that, and all that data that he figured out was from JumpShot, which is a great little analytics firm. I was talking to Ed about it yesterday. I love JumpShot. Darren Baker, who's the CEO, former Travelocity, I always forget the name of that damn company. Switchfly. I don't know why I can never remember Switchfly, but
because they weren't always Switchfly, they were something else.
They were EasyRes for a while before that. I can't remember. So, but with that, JumpShot, little known fact, has outstanding shopping cart level data, right? They can figure out who's buying what was the exact navigation path. How do they do it? They're owned by AVG, the antivirus guys. So it's all anonymized, but they've got all the full string of your whatever's going into your browser and getting clicked on, because they got to go check and see if there's a virus related to that, and that's good. They're keeping you safe, but at the same time they're just anonymously putting that information on the side and then allowing it to be mined, which ironically, again, then going back to the 1980s, since this is an anniversary show, the original funding of Pegasus was dictated by Trident Capital, that they would develop a business intelligence product, taking all of those requests and responses for hotel rooms, anonymizing it, and putting it back for an analytics product, which they never did. So, but that is a very, very interesting business with very, very powerful data, and I'm hoping to get a hold of Darren and those guys and see if they want to do something that would just be on the travel vertical, which I think would be very interesting to see these click-through rates of how much stuff is flowing through Google versus what's actually winding up going to OTAs versus going to hotels at the top of that search funnel. I think that would be fascinating, and I'm not sure if I can convince them to do it.
OTAs actually come through Google anyways.
Well, yeah, but they can figure that out. They've got that whole stream, right? Which is pretty amazing. Right, so you can see exactly what's happening. So
we've been dominating this guy, but just had a chance. Since we have the pleasure of your company, what's been going on?
So been I don't know, maybe 2 years since I came on. I know Ed was on my inaugural show. So glad. That's right. I think it was maybe a different poster was behind him.
It may have been. That one.
Could have been that one.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, that's what I remember. I was feeling out of sorts without seeing Tony Stark there. So.
For some reason, he took down his Thor: The Dark World poster.
They made posters for that movie?
Well, and that was that was before his whole rebranding, because the My Little Pony stuff just did not tie in with Flip 2. So
it's the other wall now. I moved it around.
No, yeah, but No, things have been good. So I left Sojourn about 4 months ago, and then I've been working with DoorDash doing some consulting on driver growth for them.
Oh, neat.
So, chiefly SEM. So it's been fun. I mean, they're a great company. Sojourn was awesome too. So just kind of interesting to get into a little different vertical. Interesting challenges because you have to try and get the right amount of drivers. It's not like the consumer side where they're just getting people to sign up for apps, download the app, order. It's you need to get the right amount of drivers in San Francisco, in Jacksonville. So it's been a lot of fun. Been enjoying it. I've been doing a little consulting for my buddy. His wife owns a hotel in San Francisco, so I'm getting back into AdWords. Not sure if you guys saw, but Google announced the variant update. Speaking of the Google queries you were talking about, so that's been so I don't know if you guys know this concert called Outside Lands, this big music festival in San Francisco. So it was last weekend.
It was just held,
Yeah, exactly. And so they had set up, before I got into the account, they had set up some Outside Lands hotels keywords. So I dug in the other day and oh my God, the change just totally messed it up because they had a bunch of, there was this Fairyland in New Hampshire that people were searching for hotels near, and it was matching for that. And it was just...
I am from New Hampshire, and I have never heard of Fairyland.
It was it was at least 50 Fairyland. Clicks.
But then again, too, I'm also from Southern New Hampshire, and I have never seen Southern New Hampshire University. So...
just don't go to the south of the state, I guess. But everything's been interesting. Been digging DoorDash, but I still love keeping a pulse on the travel world, especially hotels, and watching the Google Hotel Ads migration kind of from afar. That seems to have been interesting. Sure, there have been some headaches on your guys' ends. But.
So are we the pulse, or I always looked at this show as more like a spurting artery? I don't know.
Oh, that's painful, but might possibly more accurate.
We spent a lot on this show, but it is not blood.
No, it is not. No, actually, to your point about Google with the changes in the tool sets and stuff like this, there's nothing more frustrating than trying to show a client stuff and where to navigate and so forth, and literally the screen changes in front of you.
Yeah.
I had a slightly different experience. I used to teach NYU, and I was doing an analytics class, and we used to do these 3-day intensives, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I spent all day Friday showing them things and how you use Google Analytics, and then we started Saturday to pick up again, and they'd done a big update to Google Analytics. And I was like, it was when they moved from users to visitors to users, and
visitors to users,
sessions and stuff. And I was like, hey, all that stuff you learned yesterday, just throw all that out.
Throw all that out. It's all gone.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that is no longer true.
Yeah, I'm having a problem with auto tagging. I shut it off again because it was giving me some bizarre strings. Oh, and then I found out that on some platforms like Adobe, Ed, as I was mentioning before, will auto tag the auto tags and re-isolate the source and resuspend the attribution strings. And if you modify them, you could actually begin to isolate out other auto tags so that you get attribution the way you would like it. It's almost as if you're going into the core code and changing source values. And so you can begin to skew your own data just because you can. And some agencies do. But I won't name names. Anyway.
Attribution theft is real, people.
Attribution theft is, I am making that t-shirt. I am making t-shirt. Attribution theft is real. Hey, okay. So one of the other articles, just to throw back into this thing, because Robert pointed out last show that since July 6th, is it, Robert? We're finally at negative RevPAR growth?
Yes, I actually did a little presentation for the HSMAI Marketing Advisory Board, which was I ruined everydy's day. I just really brought, which I kind of do to this show too, I know, but that's. Yeah.
Did you use the meme I suggested? The everything's fine. The dog and the room on fire.
Yes, exactly. So, it's not a great situation for the hoteliers. Basically, everything plateaued in 2015 anyway, and nobody's really been talking about that. But the peak occupancies, when you really look at like the peak week, which is normally like around week 30, which we're in week 32 right now. When you look at that, well, the peak occupancy was like in, I think it was 2015, 2016. It was like 77 point. Well, now we're down at like, 75, 76. So we aren't even hitting those occupancy peaks. The growth in terms of ADR is not climbing where it was. And you're now starting to get year-over-year negative RevPAR growth. And the Hotel Data Conference was this week. I unfortunately did not attend. But once again, as STR and everybody do, I think that conference is kind of the time where they downgrade their forecasts. Things so come up with a forecast in January for the year. Mid-year, kind of, whoops, we were a little too optimistic, and because it happens every year. And once again, it was great. We do, though, have a great infographic here. I thought this was fascinating. Which was the public results of the public results from the major companies, where the major brands.
I think calling it an infographic is a little generous, because it is technically, but
it was technically, it was filed under
data, right? It's a table essentially.
It was a table that they put some graphics behind that kind of were hotel related graphics. That's a very good point. But really, what they had was, you look at all these hotel groups that are saying, oh, here we have now rolled down our forecasts for the for this year, next year. All the forward guidance is coming down. And what do you know? You look at the OTA growth and you're like, wow, look at Booking, look at Expedia. They are having some really solid growth numbers. And not so great for the hotel brands, I don't think.
Because we haven't implemented attribution selling yet.
Oh, that's true. ABS.
So it's funny. This is one where I've always wanted to be proved wrong, and I'm afraid I'm not going to be proved wrong.
Exactly.
That every time there's an economic downturn, the OTAs do better and the brands do worse. And every time the economy is strong, the brands do better and the OTAs do a little worse, in terms of share and things like that.
Right.
Because customers want more accountability. They want, easier access to, if there's a problem, they want to be able to go right to the hotel and things like that. And when
plus hotels reduce their marketing budget as well, which is
there's
absolutely
for sure. Yeah, that's a great point, Scott.
Scott.
Sorry, great point, Scott. Sorry.
It's like
kind of Scottish.
Wait, the guy up in the guy in the blue shirt, the guy from New Zealand's name is Stuart? I always thought his name was Scott. This has been going on for 4 years. Damn, I'm so sorry.
I literally think that's the third time he's called me Scott. I might just change my name legally.
That's like the second time I've called you Scott. Come on. Most of the other times I call you something else that we don't say on the But yeah, I think that's a really great point. The reality is that, folks do look for better deals, and hotels seem to shy away from marketing. You roll all those together. Oh, now we've lost Scott.
You offended him by making fun of my name.
But we kind of create these problems of our own accord a lot, and it just drives me nuts that we keep saying this and taking credit sometimes for when things are good, and going, look, we're stealing share away from the OTAs. And it's like, customer behavior is also different.
Right. And I wrote an article recently for Hotel Executive that kind of pointed out the fact that we've had such a good run of great economy, just the industry's been growing every year. And yet we've kind of rested on our laurels and accepted whatever our reliance on OTAs was. But we should have been working hard throughout that period to reduce our reliance on OTAs, because if you think about the last time a downturn happened, everyone's reliance on OTAs increased, but it never came back down. So what's going to happen this time? Where are we going to turn? Like, if you're already 70% reliant on OTAs, which some people are, where are you getting your business from?
If you're already 70% reliant on OTAs, just do not have a sales and marketing team, and that will make up for some of that.
You have no choice, right? You're going to have to go all in and just say, the OTA is my brand now. because that's the only way I can generate business.
And as long as you
would
don't have an identity crisis
relying on
about
the
that, you can actually make that work.
Maybe so.
I would argue if you're already 70% dependent on the OTAs, you don't have a sales and marketing team.
Well, you may be paying.
Well,
one,
you
though.
might. You may
Yeah.
have
Well,
staff
that's
who's getting
right.
paid. They just aren't producing any value. Yeah.
Right, but realistically, those folks are just retired. They just have to come and stand in line for 40 hours a week while they wait for their check.
But they're
Yeah.
still putting out those postcards at the beginning of every year to drive demand. Someone's got to do that.
So
Oh,
actually, I just pulled up this
Oh, we're-
little thing. I thought there were some interesting quarterly performance stats. So, first quarter, okay, actually occupancy was up 8 basis points versus the previous year. So you go, okay, that's pretty good. Second quarter, it's off 22 basis points. Third quarter, so which is quarter to date, off 52 basis points. So all of a sudden things have turned and are heading south. So you wind up, and in all of these for occupancy, ADR, RevPAR, the year-to-date stats are all worse than the 52-week moving average, right? So everything is basically headed south. So, same thing. ADR variance, it was up 1.18% in the first quarter. So just 1.2. It was about 1.4 in the second quarter. Was heading up. Okay, it's okay. Well, third quarter, and again, this is the strongest quarter of the year. Only up about 0.8%. So that's coming down. And what happens with RevPAR? RevPAR was up 1.2% first quarter, just under 1.1% in the second quarter, and now it is at 0.09% growth in the third quarter. So it hasn't gone south yet for the quarter. For weeks it has, but
right.
not good. And the point that I made was, if you look back to 2006, this is looking a lot like the exact same pattern that happened in 2007. Global financial crisis didn't hit until September of 2008,
Right.
but this is looking exactly the same of what's happening to occupancy. Occupancy, tailing off. Then all of a sudden ADR goes down, RevPAR goes south, and then something big happens, right?
You're a resident historian, right?
I'm
been
old.
Whether we like it or not.
Correct.
You will learn your history, whippersnapper.
But you keep all this data and things like that, and so I have a question for you specifically.
Yeah. Why?
I have been saying for some time that when we have when our next recession comes, it will likely look like a traditional recession, right? 2008 was not a normal recession.
You're
There's a
right.
reason why it's
You're right.
called the Great Recession, right?
Mhm.
2002 was not a normal business cycle recession, right? It was caused by external factors and the like, and the bursting of the dot-com bubble to some degree. When you're saying the data looks like what we saw in 2007, are you saying that we're seeing the same indicators that we see historically before recessions, or are you saying we're seeing the same indicators that we saw the one and only time the economy
the indicators you see
hardcore?
I think for 2008 there were certainly indicators that there was going to be a recession. I mean, right now you start looking at the government treasury bills, and all of a sudden they've gone inverted, right? Where the the short term yields are lower than the long term yield curve inverted. That normally within 18 months you get a recession, right? But these are all the things. I think what happened in 2008, there was probably one coming, but then there was a catalyst that went boom. Same thing that happened in 2001. September 11th. Nobody saw coming, but you had this overheated, dot-com bubble that had just burst, some other things, that happened before. That was really 2000, and things were kind of unwinding a little bit. And then all of a sudden you had this event that just catalyzed it and really, made it go. So no, I think right now I think a lot of folks on Wall Street are loving the volatility because they just make a ton of money. All these algorithms are just going, crank it up, send it down until something triggers
Are we
an
saying
adjustment.
normal recession, or are we saying abnormal recession?
We can hope for a normal recession. My fear is that there will be some catalyst that makes it a big adjustment, because that again seems to be what the algorithms and the street kind of likes, right? I don't know. They like the volatility when there's uncertainty, but at some point things have to get it. You look at historical PE ratio, you just look at all the fundamentals, you go, wow, overheated. The Fed lowering interest rates preemptively, you go, wait a second, guys, you're just throwing some fuel. Why don't we store the fuel cans near the light, near the campfire where we can see them, sort of thing, right? I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, I see a lot of signals for watch out. I don't know what will happen, what the trigger will be, but my hunch is there may be some trigger that nobody sees coming, which makes it bad. And again, with all this extended overheating, the adjustment's going to be deeper, right? One would think. I mean, what puts on the brakes if something catalyzes that is, it's certainly not going to be a 2-point interest rate cut.
No. Well, right.
Because there's nowhere to go. So
wait, we can't have negative interest rates. Just
Well, that's okay. We're on the inclined tightrope. We're on the unicycle. We're juggling the raw egg, the bowling ball, and the live chainsaw. What could go wrong?
And the two largest economies in the globe are
And
fighting
with
each
that,
other.
everyone, have a great weekend. Hope you all
Don't
Thank you.
worry about
We're here until Thursday.
don't worry about the nuclear missile exploding in northern Russia. That's nothing. Or us getting out of the nuke treaty. There's nothing to worry about on any of stuff like
There's
that.
a few check
So.
boxes of some fun stuff. All right, on a happier note.
Meanwhile, Robert's going long on shotguns and duct tape.
Exactly.
Hey, Robert, did you buy that little piece of land in the middle of Oklahoma, like you said you were, and dig a big hole in the middle of it? Is that what you did?
No.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for the best, but I just try to look at fundamentals a lot, right? Just kind of go. That's
Okay, so let me ask, in light of that conversation, how's all these mega companies now, the Marriotts and so forth? What's going to happen if people don't have enough money to travel, and people are already over indebted, and now all of a sudden economies of scale are out of place, and tariffs are fighting each other and so forth. How are single entities of that size going to mitigate their operations, do you think?
Oh no, they're in much better shape than some individual hotels will be by far.
Yeah.
Right? Because
hotel owners are the ones who are going to get
the ones who are in trouble, right? Because hotel owners have to pay a note every month,
right?
I mean,
and labor, they got to pay the staff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
and,
right.
And
labor every week
and utilities and
Okay,
everything.
Stuart, on a scale of 1 to 10 for what you know about hotel operators and their competitive mindset, are they prepared to steal market share, do you think?
Yeah, I think not just that. I think they're prepared to, the savvy ones are prepared to prey on the weak and go and acquire them as well. Like, this is where big companies can begin, by just rolling up distressed inventory at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of our clients that are in a healthy position because they're only 12% reliant on OTAs instead of 72% reliant on OTAs. They have the pockets to go do it, and people are going to panic, and it's natural.
By the way, if you're somebody who's not in as strong a position, the best thing you can do? Renovate.
Roll over. Oh,
no, renovate. Take rooms out of inventory. Give yourself less stuff you have to fill. Fix problems. Save up some cash right now so that next year, if things are in fact soft, you can take a bunch of rooms out of inventory, fix them up, and then you have
easier to do it during a peak than in the valley when you got no cash flow and things like that. And investors are going, let's.
If you're only going to fill, I'm making up this number, 50% of your rooms anyway. Like, if that's the latent demand in the marketplace, sort of like, why not take some of the rooms that need help out of inventory and get them fixed, and set yourself up to be in a really good condition when
if you think about it, you take your rooms that are causes for guest dissatisfaction offline when you weren't going to sell them anyways. Do you end up getting a higher guest stat, overall because
Wait,
you're not cycling them into the rooms that are causing guest sat issues. And then you come out of the bad time with more rooms that will drive higher satisfaction, which potentially could move your rate upwards in the good time.
No,
you're
but
onto something.
you need crappy rooms to do attribute-based selling.
It's anchoring.
Properly.
It's anchoring.
You're going to you literally need like a boat anchor dragging
You can't
down
get
your property.
positive experiences out of
They
people
call
unless
that
you
boat
show them
anchoring.
what bad can really be.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, we have three choices. Rancid. We start with rancid room service, and then we move up to to palatable, and then something that you might digestible would be, I think, the third one.
Ed, I want you to write a book, an ironic book on how to market hotels. Just everything completely.
It would probably make you sad as you were going through it.
Well, you
Yeah,
know what
because you
would
probably see too many examples to point at and say,
What
this
would
is
make
just
me
what
sad
these
is
people are
people
doing.
would
You're doing
read
it
it
wrong.
and be like, "That's what we're doing currently." So
Yeah. Hey, Robert, did you have any malice intended since Tim has some loose affiliation with Wyndham about pointing out all the articles of?
By the way, you guys know I'm recusing myself from this discussion.
I was going to say Tim is recruited. Yeah, Wyndham.
I just thought Robert was trying to be malicious by pointing out a couple articles about Wyndham.
I'm not exactly sure what's going. Well, you don't want to ignore the elephants in the room, and this is a pretty big elephant. So,
are you talking about Tim? You're calling him a big elephant?
Dang.
Recuse myself, and I
Wow.
absolutely disagree with that. And I disagree for 1 second. And full disclosure for those who don't watch the show.
Why do you keep saying this? It's only us watching.
exactly. Nobody else
forced
sees this.
This is our therapy hour, man. What are you talking about?
But I am a shareholder in Wyndham, and my
What?
better half is gainfully employed by Wyndham. So I always tread lightly on these stories.
Yes.
I would point out, and I can't remember which one it is, and I don't have the link because of reasons. I don't have the link up in front of me at the moment.
HPT and RLJ. They're two different groups who are.
Yeah, I believe it's HPT. I can't remember which one of the groups is doing this. I remember reading the article, and I just have them confused in my mind. I think it's HPT. But if you scroll down to midway through the article, they also talk about the fact that they have 30 to 40 Marriotts that they are also reevaluating.
And they own Sonesta, and they also own Sonesta, right?
Right.
Or the same management, the
Sounds
same
like
organization. Yes.
like an ownership group that is questioning whether or not they're getting value out of brands generally, or which brands meet the needs of that specific REIT generally.
Right.
So, I mean,
Or if they want
That-
to, they
that
see a
headline wouldn't
downturn
be
coming and they want to
misleading,
feed
would it?
their own management
Right, the
company,
headline
and
would-
things like that.
right, exactly. So the headline is, let's beat the crap out of Wyndham because it seems to be beat the crap out of Wyndham week.
like
And it is beat the crap out of Wyndham.
Let's-
It was.
and-
That's very good. Yes.
Let's
And a month
be
from
fair,
now, it
though.
might
This is
be-
a pile-on kind
Now
of
it might
show,
be
though.
a month from now, it might be let's beat the hell out of Marriott week, right?
Well, we did have
That's
actually we had a
every
month of that. We did a month of that already. We
No,
did
no,
a-
I mean the headlines picking on REITs
Oh.
who are deflagging or switching from flag A to flag B.
Right.
Yeah.
I realize I have a bias here, but this is not an uncommon
I
occurrence.
mean, Wyndham lost a lot of cachet when they shedded the Knights Inn brand. So I mean,
Yes.
it's understandable that they're going through this right now.
Well, I don't believe I'm speaking. I don't believe I'm speaking out of turn.
You
I don't
always
think so.
are.
I believe this was.
You don't
The
believe
JD
it because you never know when you are.
Let's just say I won't go into detail, but Knights Inn had a negative NPS in the JD Power studies that we have. Oh, actually, there were a couple that were around 0, but they had a significantly low Net Promoter Score, which was a bit startling. You
to
don't
be
normally.
fair, those are just the people who ended up at Knights Inns that also had a computer.
And for anyone who wants to know where the Flip 2 offices are located,
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know. It's interesting. Because the Red Lion folks, acquired Knights Inn from Wyndham, and they had acquired the Vantage brands and things like that too. So they've got a lot of economy cat and dog product. I think I would best describe it as. So, and that's fine. You can go look at it and go, hey, there's an asset we can go bring up, and we've got a strategy to go do this. I don't know if they signed up. This is a noble project if they turn that around, because it was in worse shape
Wait a
than
sec. But here's the
I
thing.
thought.
Okay, like that's the majority of hotels are the ones serving this level of the market. Like we always focus. Like Marriott is not primarily a 4-star hotel chain. Wyndham is not Dolce. Hilton is not Waldorf Astoria. And let's be honest, Waldorf Astoria hotels aren't Waldorf Astoria. So,
Exactly.
let's not forget
Well
that
put.
the back of this industry is built on the limited service, low cost hotel rooms. And, I joked about Nights Inn customers having computers, but they fill a need in the market. Super 8 fills a need in the market. Motel 6.
By the way, I would like to point out in all seriousness, when you were talking about NPS and things like that, there was a dramatic difference in guest satisfaction and things along those lines between Super 8 and Nights Inn. Super 8 is a great brand.
Well, and Nights Inn is a membership organization that the ownership has control. It's not a real franchise. There are no brand standards the owners are forced to do. It's a membership, isn't it? They're like committee. You can't force them to do anything on Nights Inn.
No, it was a regular brand.
It was a regular branded franchise.
Was it?
Regular franchise.
Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I thought it was a membership.
No. No. It was pure. Everything we did at Wyndham during the time I was there, Sendent at the time I was there, was
pure franchise. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
they were just a safety net brand. They were kind of the bottom. It's kind of what Sheraton did it with 4 Points, right? It's like you aren't good, you clean up the brand.
It's not an unfair characterization of it. They really were sort of. These are the ones that aren't doing. You can't be anything else, so we're going to go ahead and make you a Nights Inn. And I think it was good.
And what kept you in the brand?
Brand.
What kept you in the Nights Inn brand was that your check cleared every month. Your franchise fees cleared. And
really fair about this. I want to be really fair about this. I think I can say all of this because I've been gone from the company for a very long time. I've been gone for, good Lord, almost 12 years now. Over 12 years now, rather.
Are you really gone?
Public franchisors are measured by the market on rooms growth. So we were actually really good, especially the last few years I was there. Steve Rudnitsky and his team were doing a really good job, and I think Eric Danziger, when he came in, continued this, and I think Jeff Velati has continued this, of getting, moving poor quality product out of the system. Yeah. You also had to do it in a way that, okay, if we're going to drop these 1,000 rooms, are we bringing in 1,100 rooms over here to be able to go to the street at the end of the quarter and say, hey, we're up net 100 rooms?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's just sort of the
that's
nature.
Hard. And that is a difficult.
That is a challenge. So,
yeah.
Plus, don't forget, if you have a franchise agreement with a hotel, moving a poor quality hotel out of a franchise system is not as easy as you might think, right?
Those pesky things called contracts and legal system and
lawyers.
You have to give people time to remediate. You have to give people time to say, this is something we're working to fix, etc. So, I mean, it is not as easy as, oh, this property is garbage and it's hurting other properties, so we need to simply kick them out. It doesn't work that way. It's this property has problems. We need to work with them on a way to remediate that. We need to give them multiple chances to remediate. And then, in fact, if they're truly not interested in upholding the standards of the brand, then we have to work towards the obvious exit. Oh, and we also have to line that up with bringing in more rooms than we're moving out of the system, or else we have a really bad story to tell the street, and then we don't have the capital to do all the other good things that brands can do if they're appropriate for a given property or set of properties.
Yeah. And that is really the story of Starwood's downfall, right?
Exactly
because they had two problems. One is they didn't have a lot of mid-scale and economy product that they could build fast, right? And you can go, let's start dropping these things out of planes. That was difficult.
One of my favorite mid-scale, the Aloft. I think if they had gotten legs under Aloft and Element, that would have with time would have become something that strengthened them greatly.
Right.
Those were such cool
Yeah. Well, and I
properties.
think a loft technically is like it's either upscale or upper upscale or something like, which is
I don't
great. You
know.
know, they kind of
They
moved it.
thread the
They
needle
pushed
so
it up
much
the.
on what's what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Well,
Yeah.
because they needed to make
But
room for Element.
yeah, well, but the problem is, and this is now a problem for Marriott, the massive amount of room inventory in Sheraton and Westin, right? Which need brand refreshes and property and all sorts of things. And they've got some kind of plans around it, but I don't think it's, yeah, I don't think it's enough soon enough, right? Which is going to be interesting. That's just going to be very difficult. And again, as Ed said, most of the stuff, most of the industry is kind of, at the lower, the mid-scale end for the volume of it. So how do you fix these really big, complicated, things? And I think Stuart would say, attribute-based selling will be it.
That's it.
By the way, I as much as I love the conversation, always enjoy this. I have a 1 o'clock today.
You don't need to lie to
I'm
us.
actually leading.
You don't have to lie, Tim. It's the fourth anniversary show.
Oh my
The
God!
honeymoon phase is over. You can be honest. You don't like us. It's okay.
That's not true. I don't like you.
He just doesn't like you. It's not all of us. It's just
Yeah, don't rope everyone into that.
Yeah, exactly. What are you thoughts?
Yeah, most of us have
he
something
likes
in common.
Stuart just fine.
He just doesn't know my name.
I actually heard a great
You
line.
like Steve? Yeah.
I actually heard a great
Love
line the other day.
Steve.
This is from a long time ago. I turned it around and used it on marketers, but apparently somebody once said they were talking. Some politician once said, corruption in politics really corrupt politicians really give the other 10% of us a bad name. And I'm dying to find a way to use that as often as possible.
Possible, yeah.
That is a
Right,
great
like
quote.
slimy marketers really give the other 10% of us a bad name.
Speaking of which, did you guys
That's
get
good.
to the
That
hyper?
one.
Did you get to the hyper story last week? Speaking of slimy marketing,
Well, before you do that,
No.
I legitimately do have to drop because I
Tim,
legitimately have to
always
set
a
up
pleasure.
conference call for another group. So always a pleasure, guys. Happy
thank
anniversary. And
Thank you, and thank you for being a big, huge part of that for all the years we've been doing this. For people to know more about Tim Peter and your amazing podcasts, and content and articles and everything else, where do they go?
They can go to timpeter.com and they can go to find the podcast at timpeter.com/podcast. By the way, I do have to throw in a very shameless plug for Stuart's podcast and an article he wrote the other day on fueltravel.com, because first of all, it was a brilliant, brilliant article. Secondly, he quoted me. So, I mean,
That makes it all the better for you.
all good artibles start that way.
That's fine.
All good articles quote Tim Peter. That's right.
All great articles.
happy anniversary, guys. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
great
Jim.
years. I will see you all next week, and we'll go
See
from
you
there.
then.
Have a great week. Bye now.
Bye now. Yes. What article was that, Stuart? What did you do? How did you quote Tim?
It was the one about the triggered emails that you should be sending throughout the journey.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
I did
Which
we
also
did
was
an episode. We did a separate podcast episode and a blog article on it. But I used his quote about because it was really trying to focus. I actually wrote 2 articles that quoted him this week, because one was about retaining guests that booked through OTA originally and turn them into direct bookers. I wrote that this week. That's going on Hotel Executive in about a month or so. But then the one on emails, I use his quote all the time with a lot of people, but he says, and I don't know if he coined this term, it's pretty commonsensical, but I always attribute it to him. But if you get a guest through the OTAs the first time, great. If you get them through the OTAs the second time, then you're doing it wrong, is essentially what he says. So
Yeah.
I think I agree with that 100%. So we did a whole thing about how to get OTA guests to turn into direct bookers.
Very nice. Very
Nice.
Yeah. Well, and I think the only point is you may not get all of them, but you should be doing all the right things to make that possible.
Yeah,
right?
the vast
that's
majority. You need to put
Yeah.
your best foot forward and actually put some effort towards it. So
Right. Yeah. Because there will be some who are sitting there, they're Target Red Card members, and all of a sudden they're
Sure.
getting a 10% benefit by booking through hotels.com, plus
Sure.
getting their little stars for the
But
free
that's
thing,
not
and
the
they don't care.
majority. Yeah, that's not
Right.
the
And
majority of people.
that's not a huge group of
Yeah.
it. And you kind of go, kudos to the hotels.com guys for figuring that out and going, and that's a pretty compelling sort of
Capture
thing to
that
lock
one
in that group.
schmuck. I'm going to work on these other guys that I can turn into my evil
Exactly.
minions. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, we have time for the rut row.
People don't have enough money to travel. Ah!
Can we, before we do the rut row, can we talk about that stupid plant hotel?
Oh yeah,
Of course.
That should have been
Love
the
your
rut row.
plants. Are you stupid?
All right, this
Well,
is a
we
total,
got something
like,
for you.
I'm assuming this is a total joke, right? This is a publicity stunt from the company that sells houseplants. That's how I read it. Because they said the manager of the hotel was Rose Growing or Rose Grower or something like that. Like this is like the Taco Bell
Maybe.
all over again. It has
Maybe.
It
Yeah.
has to be. There's no way this is legitimate. This is a publicity stunt to sell houseplants because they linked and quoted multiple times a business. And I'm not even going to give them the satisfaction of saying their name because that's what they want. But this trend of creating a one-off boutique hotel for a few days because this isn't permanent just to get publicity is pissing me off. I'm going to be like, just annoying. Stop it. Stop.
There are 100
Not funny anymore.
100 rooms up for grabs. So the rooms are just like, shelf spots, right? To go do that.
But it's
So,
only,
yeah.
I think in the article it says it's only through October something.
So do
which
I get to call my house a cat
September.
hotel now because we have 4? Like, is that all it takes? Like, you just have to have shelves and you're a plant hotel?
It's
You
now
you keep your cats on
data.
shelves. Wait a second, Ed. You keep your cats on shelves. That is
Better
not
than
right.
a binder full of women. Anyone? Famous political person
Yeah.
said that.
Yes.
It was kind of the end of his
Yes.
presidential run.
yeah.
I have shelves full of cats. Just sounds much better. No one wants to touch that, huh?
I'm not gonna-
Ed finally figured out the whole herding cats thing. He said it's like herding cats. Ed's like, that's not that hard. You put them on
I did
shelves.
that. Yeah, like, just put them on a shelf and job done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
boy.
did you guys read it that way too? That this isn't a
Yeah,
legit
I
thing?
just-
Yeah, it was a joke.
I
That's
just
why
think
I thought we weren't going to talk about it.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Well, let's not
Okay.
give them any.
Well, I try to throw in little entertaining bits of just what the hell was that in there.
We
every
actually just
once in a
wanted to
while.
see-
Here's the
Reddit.
problem with those articles, though, right? And this is why it bugs me. I get being creative from a marketing perspective and trying to create noise, and it apparently it's happened because they've gotten a lot of articles written about this, just like Taco Bell did when they were open for 2 days or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
People don't read articles; they read headlines. In the industry, this industry is so stupid that they'll read that article headline, and that's in their
You want
brain.
to roll that back a little bit, just in case someone actually does watch this?
Well, some people in the industry just read headlines and regurgitate it, and now everyone's going to be like,
People
"Oh,
in general, not just
big
this
thing.
industry, do that.
well, probably people. Some
I
people
mean-
are okay. You're right, but it annoys me.
Trying to save you here from that statement.
I don't care.
That was your binder full of woman moment.
It was. But the
I
only
said-
people who get mad at me are the people that read the headlines and don't read the articles. Anyone that reads the article is not.
Well, because the headline of this story would say, Stewart says you're all stupid.
But if you're the kind of person that only reads headlines, I don't care because then you are stupid, and I stand by that. If you
So,
read
I
articles,
mean, I would crap on this a little bit, except I, did get my previous company quite a bit of exposure by writing a series of very funny press releases that were tongue-in-cheek jokes about like major pharmaceutical companies sue Easy Yield for drop in antidepressant sales was like one headline.
yeah.
And, increase in world population tied to use of Easy Yield. So okay.
all right, I'm going to embrace it. We're going to start sending BS press releases now.
Okay, so
I
a
know.
different. So the plant hotel was garbage, but what about Accor going into the Love hotels? I thought there was a great quote
Yeah, well,
from Michael Eisenberg, who I know from school way back when. That
Say which school?
Cornell
Bingo.
University School of Hotel
Bingo.
Administration.
Bingo.
You've completed bingo.
Yeah.
I was waiting for somebody to yell bingo, so there we go. But this is a great quote. We don't do rooms by the hour. In fact, a few of their hotels are not joining the network because that is more the style of the hotels, but that's not what we're doing.
So what's
So-
funny is the reason I didn't recognize it is because I had read it as Accor loves hotel deals in Singapore.
No, they're doing love hotel deals in
It's because I just
Singapore.
scanned it and I was like, nah, I'm not gonna.
Yeah. So anyway,
So a love hotel is different from a other hotel. How?
They rent
very
for 2 hours
short.
instead of one.
Yeah, very, very common in Asia. Very short length of stay.
Like hourly?
Overnight. It can be hourly, overnight. Whatever the
Different
whatever the
type
case
of
may be.
on-site entertainment available.
Normally, a lot of people bring their own entertainment or companions, yes, with them to do that. So
The difference
it's-
between the 1 hour hotel and the love hotel is you have 2 hours, so you have time to cuddle afterwards. So that's where the love comes
That's
in.
how it's
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
yeah, that is a great way if
That
you're
extra
looking
hour
at
of
creative ways
crying
to increase your
is-
increasing your RevPAR. If you can rent that room 3-4 times a day, there you go. So
As long as you're
Yeah,
investing in
that's-
cleaning services, housekeeping.
I think I've mentioned this before. One of the most creative housekeeping related things. Of course, they all do the don't change the sheets. You're saving the planet, which is all just labor saving. But this one I thought was the Holiday Inn in Cortland, New York, and this was late 70s. $5 off if you bring your own sheets.
Hey, that's what the vacation rental
Hey,
industry's been
If
doing.
I'm not
Exactly.
flying to a hotel, I bring my own pillow.
Attribute based sales. There
Yeah, my
you
wife
go.
always takes a pillow with her.
Yeah.
If
And
you
my
want to
wife
bring your
laughs
own,
at me when I'm packing it, and then that night she goes, "Man, I wish I would have brought my pillow."
So
my
American,
my
you're a
daughter's
good
like that
husband.
with her
You
pillow.
take
She
care
has
of
a
her.
favorite pillow.
the Rauro.
So Americans don't have enough money to travel.
Yeah,
Well,
it would take the time to
They-
travel.
they it's not that they don't. There's a certain percentage, the top 1% do. So it's the headline, I think, in Bloomberg, they can't afford. More than 40% of Americans have opted out of a getaway over the past year, specifically because of the cost, a new study finds. And I think this actually is kind of a serious rut-row, because we were talking about all the attribute-based sales and things like that. A lot of the airline policies are outrageously hostile to families traveling. I mean,
Yes.
basic economy may be a low, lead-in fare, but all of a sudden when they're looking at, to get full economy, where you've got to, you can actually get seats next to each other because you don't want your 3-year-old and your 5-year-old just, 8 rows away in a middle seat. That is a problem. And it's not just a $30 difference now. American, particularly in Dallas, is getting outrageously aggressive on this. Main cabin seats are now $130 a seat more
And
than
I do
basic
laugh
economy
about
and
that
things like that,
because
right?
hotels are so focused on the fear of like an Airbnb or an OTA stealing their ability to price, when quite honestly, it's been the airlines that have been stealing share of wallet this whole time, which is brilliant on the airlines part, because the airlines are really nothing special. They're buses with wings.
Yeah.
And yet somehow they've fooled the hotel industry into just accepting that, you know what, we're going to take all your money. We're taking it.
Right.
It's ours.
Right. They created it because of that control of those, or the whole thing of creating hubs and then controlling these origin and destination nonstop markets was the key. That was the killer strategy for at least the North American airline industry.
How is it not considered price fixing what they do with their?
Oh my God. Okay.
Because they fund the right politicians, Stuart.
Oh no. Okay. Again, another history lesson. In 1981, I believe, 81, maybe early 82, Ronald Reagan, they had an air traffic controllers strike, right? Which was very bad. Reagan basically threw out all the air traffic controllers who wanted more money and things like that. Really impacted the airline industry. Created havoc for groups like Braniff, who ran a great airline, but was battling for their survival with American. And American Airlines, everybody thinks, based in Dallas. It was based in in New York. The only reason it came to Dallas was the Wright Amendment. Jim Wright, who was the Speaker of the House, very powerful person, created a federal law that said Southwest Airlines could only fly to neighboring states, could not check baggage or even provide fares to go to San Diego. So if you were on a flight from Dallas Love Field to El Paso, and then there was another flight that was the same equipment was going from El Paso to San Diego, you had to get off the plane, pick up your bags, recheck them in, buy it on separate ticket stock as a separate transaction. And it was a federal law.
Short story long.
Crazy. Short story long.
The airlines fund the right politicians, like I said.
No, Bob Crandall, CEO of American Airlines, they have on tape calling Howard Putnam, who was running fare sales every 2 weeks to meet payroll, saying, if you don't do these fare sales, if you stop these fare sales, we'll stop matching them, because that's how they put Braniff out of business. They wound up A, matching the fares, and then B, offering just some multiplier of advantage miles, right, to just finally put the nail on the coffin. And he was clear it wasn't a problem. Or Northwest Airlines going against some new upstart carrier and going, oh, you have such and such flights. Well, we're going to A, put 757s or whatever on the flight instead of some regional jet. We're going to go up to frequency of 5 times a day instead of twice, and just bleed them out, because they know, hey, we're going to take all of this. Oh, we're going to give extra miles to that. They got away with that. Actually,
I'm giving you 1 minute to wrap this story up.
Okay. Last one was American did the same thing with a great all first class air carrier out of Love Field, right? And they got away with it every single time.
The thing that concerns me about this article is that when you add it to another article we had that Robert, you put together for us about people who, even though they're given unlimited vacations, they don't take it. Even though they have 2 weeks worth of vacation, the average is less than 40% of people even taking 7 days away. When you add all of that, plus the increase in debt that is now, when we went through the 2008, 2009, that stopped for a while, but now it's back again. The burdening of debt, the lack of vacation time taking away, to your point about airlines taking their share, and whatever's left over is decided on between rented cars and hotels and tickets to parks and stuff. We're setting ourselves up when this does come to deflate, that we're going to be really chasing after a fewer or smaller audience that can actually afford what it is we're even talking about.
Or there will be a correction in pricing. Because, you can't continue to raise the price of your offering without improvement for this long and expect to continue being able to do that without pricing yourself out of your consumers' reality.
Which was the original article about this whole segment thing.
Unless you encounter a stupid parasite, and a stupid parasite is the one that kills the host, right?
Right.
That's and that I'm not sure. But.
So Stuart says the industry's stupid, and Robert says that travelers are parasites. I think this show.
No. The travelers are not killing them. No, they're the host.
I think
travelers are the host.
Welcome to our 5-year edition of Yes, You Are Not. Appreciate that.
Let's compare the tone of this episode to the first one and see if there's a difference. That 5 years of thinking about what goes on in this industry does to our overall outlook and positivity.
Right? It tainted us, but I guess as a wrap-up back to the original point, if it's not guest-centric, it's not worth considering to be done at the end of the day. And that for everything that we do from our perspective of hospitality, if we take that and realize that if it doesn't benefit the guest, then it shouldn't be considered if it only benefits us. And it means also identifying with the guest and what you guys are doing between what Flip2 does, what
Rock Cheetah do.
It makes a really great Twitter account.
It's secret. So, not much. Rock Cheetah does Rock Cheetah does so much more than TimPeter.com, but just doesn't shamelessly promote it. And that's what Tim gets for leaving early.
All right, so since we made it through all those things, did you guys talk about Hyper last week?
Did we bring it up? I can't remember if we talked about it or not. But yeah, Hyper was a great.
The news
great
keeps getting
story.
worse.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So
please.
after Hyper, so for those of you who don't know what Hyper is, Hyper was a very buzzy, and I'm saying was maybe a little prematurely, but I'm
They
not sure.
do still technically exist, but I think they've shut down. They haven't started.
They have
back up.
shut down their site.
Right.
So Hyper was a company that was touting all this really interesting functionality that almost seemed too good to be true. And, you know, we're explaining what should have been obvious to everyone, bad things, that they basically geofenced every hotel in the world and tracked everyone's activity while they were within that geofence and recorded it, and we're making that available to marketers to take advantage of. So there's this little pesky thing that I think is going to be the thing that ultimately pulls them in front of Congress, that Hyper's going to have a hard time explaining away. So Hyper said, you know, they were being accused by the media as being as bad as a Cambridge Analytica, and their counterpoint to that was, we were taking public information and storing it. So it's already a kind of a weak argument, except they were also storing Instagram stories, which were meant to only live momentarily.
Right.
And they were storing those as well. And what they were doing is basically large scale surveillance and commercializing it to hotels and like all their customers. So what's interesting is I'm really interested to see what Marriott does with this, because it's my understanding they were a big investor in Hyper.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
A substantial user of Hyper.
Yeah.
And so Hyper has shut down their platform because, you know, without Instagram, they're doing it on Twitter and no one looks at Twitter. They just look at it to retweet, not to actually transact.
Yeah.
And Facebook now has sent out a warning to all of their marketing partners that if you're doing anything that violates their terms of service, and if you're scraping in any way, and they actually go through defining the different ways you could define scraping data off of their platform, that they will pursue you and shut you down, blah, 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 blah. So, and I hate to bring it up because I actually know someone who invested in Hyper and I feel horrible for them. However, crappy marketing is not going to continue to survive. The walls are closing in on crappy marketing. And if you are doing anything, like, I don't know, spamming people on these networks, storing anything that they post without, you know, upfront permission on that and clear understanding, these things are going to come to an end. And they should, because you shouldn't be doing this to your guests. You should not be surveilling your guests. And there's one more article that came out about this, which is the FBI had actually been putting out bids for a Hyper-like platform so they can dragnet all the different places people post publicly to as an advanced surveillance program.
Yeah. What could go wrong?
Yeah. What really makes me laugh is on one of Hyper's testimonials on their site before they've adjusted it, was actually someone saying, I can't believe it's legal.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there was a CNBC article about, you know, and they have Karin Tampone, talking about, we're geofencing this, we're capturing all the social media stuff and doing this, and the M Live team or whatever they called it, it gets back to them and all this stuff. So it was just like,
this is surveillance.
It is. Yep.
Well, I mean, if anybody wants to see this in real life application, just download the app Banjo. And,
is Banjo still functioning?
It was last time I looked.
Yeah.
Oh, can't see it on the website anymore. Website got shut, turned down to just being a brochure site, but the app still works. It still shows trends and points and stuff. They've taken off putting people's icons of their their profile pictures and so forth, and they've taken off exact locations of the post. They've bubbled them rather than pinned them, but you still see by based of area and range what is being posted geo-sourced, and then you see what's being posted up that's publicly available.
Well, and there was an app, what was it, Where Are My Friends? Or Friends in Town, that just got shut down. That was basically doing what Hyper does, except telling you which of your Instagram followers were in town.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I mean, Facebook had their nearby. What's nearby is still in general form.
Yeah, but
it's
that's
now
often. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Nearby, you can actually turn it on or off.
Right.
And it's not defaulted to on.
Mhm.
Okay. What these other platforms were doing was they were, without people understanding, they were recording everything and building a profile on that person.
Mm-hmm.
That's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and actually,
then-
Marriott, the page on Hyper is still there with like the testimonials and why Marriott uses on 60. And yeah, that Marriott hasn't come in and said, "Can you take us off of there?" Anything like that. But I mean, again, the testimonials they've got. Jacob Walker, Senior Manager, Social Media, Asia Pacific. The Hyper platform provides us with an extremely rare opportunity, a way to market to our customers quickly, seamlessly, and genuinely. Enable us to engage in a way that's never been done before. Never have we been closer to the true voice of our customers. Do your customers know that? Would be the first question. Yeah.
Nobody's
And then
listening to us. We laugh,
Marriott
you
Indy
laugh, and
Place,
people laugh,
the
you
front
laugh.
desk and concierge teams do a wonderful job of connecting with our guests during the check-in process and taking the extra steps to make their stay special and personal. Using Hyper allows our team to extend that hospitality even further, enabling us to make more connections and create special touches. It's like,
By being a stalker. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
No,
yeah,
hold on. No, you're being hospitable.
exactly.
Just anticipating the
Please.
need by spying
Yes.
on them.
Yeah.
And see, that's what Ed is doing with his cat hotel. He's bringing the cats in and putting them on shelves. He's being hospitable. So it's the same thing.
What's the joke? Nobody's listening to us. You laugh, we laugh. Alexa laughs, Google laughs.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I've not heard that before. That's funny.
That is funny.
No, it is.
So here's the thing. I think there's going to be a lot of shakeup here because Facebook's under immense pressure to handle this type of stuff. So I'm just going to say, if you're doing anything on these social platforms that involves injecting yourself into someone's conversation in an unexpected manner, so that would be not using the ad network that the platform has. Instead, I don't know, listening and commenting actively on posts that weren't directed to you, or scraping. So by the way, scraping data, I know some of you may not understand this, but the platforms that scrape imagery off of these social networks, imagery contains personally identifiable information. So if you're doing any of these things, the days of being able to do that are numbered, because Facebook is under immense pressure to shore up all these different ways that people can build very evil
loose ends.
And if you're not sure whether you should be doing it or not, one, you probably
shouldn't be.
If you're asking that question,
Yeah.
you should not be doing it.
But I always do tell my kids this, when it comes to, I've got a 13-year-old that's just starting to dabble in social media, and I always tell him, unless whatever you're posting, unless you wouldn't put it on a billboard right out front of your nan's house for her to see, then don't post anything on the internet. Don't send it as a message to anyone else, because as soon as it leaves you, it's potentially public, right?
Mhm.
That's the same thing you should do with your marketing efforts. If you don't want every customer to see outside their house on a billboard exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, if you're not comfortable with that, then you should not be doing it.
What should I do with that picture that you sent me about you? But no, very true statement
Perhaps
to that.
Lauren and Lauren, my relationship with Stuart is apparently very different from Lauren's relationship with Stuart. I'm not sure.
So the other thing, since we're probably at a point where no one's going to watch this part, I think it's very funny. I think it's very funny in the last email string we all had about the first article, how Dan Waxman like put a really funny joke and zinger against Lauren, and no one has responded to it.
I was hoping he was going to pop on the show.
Part of that's because, you know, he was in a different time zone and it was very late, but I almost kind of want to lean into it and like maybe let a day of crickets go by and then have one of us just reply like, wow, Dan.
Really? You crossed the line, Dan.
Because it's like literally the first time he's really, you know, kind of dug into
it.
I will point out though that I'd made the same joke about 5 emails before that.
Yeah, he did. It was verbatim Stuart's joke. Yeah. So
yeah, he did point that out. But
now it'd be even funny if we act like he crossed the line. He was.
That's what I'm saying. I was thinking about it this morning because no one had replied to it still. So I was thinking of being like,
it was brilliant.
So I'm just going to break the ice here, Dan, and let you know no one responded because it was late.
I mean, you ruined Lauren's 4th anniversary show.
Oh, right. Yeah, like you say, yes.
This became
it's Lauren's 5th anniversary
this week's. Well, as far as Lauren's concerned, it is the 5th year.
It's the 5th. I started
everyone else.
Dude, you're not 1 when you're born. You're 0 when you're born.
It is my 4th birthday, 5th anniversary.
The measurement, the measurement of years is at the completion of 12 months is 1.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so but if I say I've been doing it for 5 years, how's that? 4th anniversary, 5 years of doing it.
You're starting your 5th year.
Yeah. You're starting. You're entering your 5th
year. Yes.
Actually, technically, just to be, by numbers, last week was our 5th anniversry. Or 5th
so then
year.
It's been 5 years.
See?
You told us it was this week. So
I know I lied.
You lied. But now trust him.
Yeah. No, when I went back on the page, I'm like, oh crack. That was the 5th year show.
Did you say crack?
Yeah, I said crack.
An F-bomb and an S-bomb on the show already.
Yeah, Robert dropped the F-bomb.
But now it's crack.
Crack.
Boom. Yeah.
By the way, I don't know where my 5-year-old. I don't know where my 5-year-old got it. His new thing is get the hell out.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess he got it from his dad.
He didn't.
They're parrots.
That's not a saying of mine. Like listen, my daughter early taught me to be very careful on what I say because I was holding her when I was talking to a contractor and he said something and I said, "Oh shit," and she went shit, and I'm like,
yeah. It's like it rolls off the tongue
shoot,
very nicely.
Shoot. Yeah. But yes, Eddie keeps saying, "Get the hell out," and I'm like, Bob, please, don't say it in front of your mother and don't say it at school.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for my 4th anniversary. 5 years doing this. Going into my 5th year. How's that? All right, whatever.
I mean, to be fair, with how much multi-threaded thinking you do, maybe you did do 5 years worth of thinking in this 4-year period.
I'll take it. I figure,
there may be. Lauren may be operating on a completely different time
5 years worth
we are not aware of.
About a month worth of value.
Yeah. Multi-threaded thinking is a perfect way to describe Lauren.
Exactly.
I've done 5 years of thinking in this entire process, but it has been a joy to know that if anything, it's therapeutic at the very least. Whether the numbers are right or not, the joy of being able to talk with you guys every Friday makes my sanity happen. So, or my insanity. I don't know which way you want to define it.
Sanity? Really? Is there a consensus around that assessment?
No, just general opinion. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for making that this is a part of my weekly life, and the fact that I get to heavy think and not be right by any stretch, and hardly at all sometimes.
Lauren, we all enjoy enduring the show. I mean, that's just really.
and it was so frustrating for me. I have that software where you can make somebody's face talk. I really was going to try to get a picture of Lauren Gray, the girl, and put it up and make the mouth move.
That's how you end up in jail.
Yeah, then I end up in jail.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That could be bad.
I wouldn't mess around with that.
Followers, and that just doesn't go right. So then I was going to take you, Ed, and do it, and I thought,
what's the difference? Actually, but this is the show that, quite honestly, my quotables were far less damaging to my personal brand than Stewart's and Roberts.
That's
So,
good point.
so I did
Robert has
well.
personal brand. Wait, whoa.
Yeah, I
He
have
has
no
Brock
personal
Cheetah's
brand.
Twitter account. He's